It's like being awake in a dream, like watching a movie play out in my mind. Other lives, other versions of me, existing across the multiverse, transmitting a message, a broadcast. Do you remember? We're all eternal, stars wandering through infinity, on a quantum journey back to self. Are you ready?
You are listening to Wandering Star Podcast. This is episode 3, The Grid. If you are joining us for the first time, we are glad that you found us and thank you for being here. It is important to note that each episode certainly stands alone as a wonderfully profound story. However, if you would like to have a deeper experience, we invite you to listen to this podcast in order and allow yourself to join in the mystery as we follow the evolution of a single human being's soul to uncover the power and beauty that lies within each of us. Again, thank you for joining us. Enjoy.
A misty gray fog settled in just above the tree line, lingering, watching, waiting. Below lies my body, the blood pooled around my chest, the spear still lodged in my heart. The man who killed me is slumped beside it, stricken with anguish. I wish I could tell him it's okay. I'm okay. He weeps loudly, his body convulsing with regret. Suddenly he jumps up and runs away, stumbling over rocks, racing through the thick trees. I watch him disappear, desperate to escape his fatal mistake. The gray fog swirls. My friends and family gather around my body. The animals surround it. I feel the love, the grief, the joy, the sorrow. Yet I know they will be okay. I know they will carry each other through the pain. Not knowing where else to go, I remain here, the in-between, the gray fog lingering. I watch them say goodbye, a beautiful ceremony filled with music and dancing, a celebration of my life. They wrap my body in white cloth and send it out to sea, just as they did with the old shaman. As I watch my body float away, the fog begins to lift. A bright star appears. A radiant white light, far away, instantly magnetic, ethereal, an intuitive knowing that this is where I go now. I drift off, slowly, peacefully. As I do, the fog fades away. The white light grows. It becomes brighter, more magnetic. I feel as though I'm being pulled towards it, like it's welcoming me, like it's absorbing me. My sense of self begins to blur. It pulls me closer and closer until I am the light. I am swirling intensity. I am electric. I am a collective energy. Not one soul, I am every soul. I am a piece of the source of all. A tiny fragment returned home after a long journey. It feels like the only thing I've ever known. Like everything else is a dream. I rest here for a while. There's no sense of time, just peaceful stillness, pure serenity. Below, a glowing grid appears, an extension of the light source. The golden grid lines curve slightly, some vertical, some horizontal, an energetic network of possibilities. Lights move along the grid like shooting stars, wandering off into the expanse, a soul's highway. I feel a magnetic pull and drop down from the light source, landing on the grid. Around me, other lights, other souls, travel across the celestial sphere. I follow the curve of the grid until another magnetic pull. A thread drops down from the grid. A golden thread of light dangling delicately, pulling me gently, guiding me. Slowly I follow it, down, 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 until I feel the blazing sun, hot, dry, blinding. Sunspots speckle my vision. I wait as they slowly dance away. The ground appears, sandy, rust-colored dirt. I see my bare feet. They're huge, calloused, tan. The fine bits of orange sand stick to my feet and ankles. My bare legs are strong, like those of a young man. A tattered leather skirt sits around my waist. My long dark hair is tangled and matted beneath arrows strapped across my bare back. My mouth is parched. My dry lips feel sealed shut. There's mountains far off in the distance. Small shrubs dot the landscape, but there's no large trees, no shade to take cover under. The setting sun is so scorching I can almost see the waves of heat rolling across the desert. I begin walking. In my right hand, a large jackrabbit hangs limp, lifeless. I've been out hunting. I look out across the horizon and see what I think is a small village. I sense it's my home, so I walk in that direction. The endless sky is pink and orange as the sun sets behind the mountains far off in the distance. The air cools slightly. My eyes are strained from squinting at the setting sun. I walk for about an hour until finally I reach the small village. There's about a dozen teepees scattered in a circle, made of sticks and hide. A fire blazes in the middle. The deep vibratory drones of a didgeridoo dance through the air. A full moon lights up the night. Twinkling stars dot the sky. Just beyond the teepees is a broad river, its currents flowing swiftly. I run to it and splash the cool water on my face. The moisture soothes my dry, cracked lips. Turning back to the teepees, I walk over to the one I intuitively know I live in. My family sits outside waiting for me. My wife and 2 boys. One is about 8, the other just a small baby. They're all looking at me expectantly. I hug my wife and baby and ruffle the brown hair of my older son. He smiles and looks up at me proudly. There's a feeling of anticipation in the air, like something pivotal is about to happen. I feel an excitement rising within me. I look around. The rabbit I brought back from my hunt roasts above the fire. The other villagers have gathered around to eat together. The didgeridoo signifies a celebration. In a flash, an understanding hits me. I'm preparing to leave on an important journey. I don't know where I'm going, but I know it's momentous, mystical, a rite of passage. My excitement grows. My curiosity is piqued. Eager to get going, I embrace my wife and kids and walk out into the night with 3 other men from my village. The full moon guides us, illuminating the vast desert as we begin our pilgrimage. We don't have any food or water with us. Empty-handed, we walk day and night until our destination finally appears far off in the distance. Chills run up and down my body. I feel the instant energetic pull. It's breathtaking. Rising from the flat desert, it appears to glow in the night. I walk faster, almost running, until I collapse at its base. Uluru. Sacred, spiritual, magical. The massive rock holds the spirits of our ancestors. I reach out and put my hands on it, paying my respect. In awe of its enormity, I feel its breath, the breath of the souls who came before me, the breath of those still to come. I rest in the sanctity of it. A few days pass with no food or water, and dehydration begins to set in. One of my companions is very sick. He's throwing up, too weak to move. I look around the dry desert for anything that might help him. The sun peeks out from behind the massive rock and shines down upon a cluster of shrubs. As the shadow of the rock moves, I see some seeds hanging from the shrub and stumble over to pick a few. I kneel down above him and squeeze the small seed over his head. Tiny droplets of liquid wet his lips. He stirs restlessly. His eyes flutter open and shut. I squeeze a couple more seeds on his lips and sit beside him, blocking the blazing sun from scorching his already dehydrated body. The seed begins to help him. He stops vomiting. His body appears to relax. He looks up at me with gratitude. I smile and gaze over at the rock, quietly thanking it for showing me how to help him. Hallucinations come and go, yet no fear exists here, just a profound trust in the magic of Uluru. I close my eyes and ask Uluru for courage and clarity. I ask for my purpose to be shown to me. In a flash, my dad's spirit manifests. I feel his hand on my head, a comfort I haven't felt in years. My son, you are a warrior, he says. You must be strong and protect the village, like I did. Uluru will show you the way. Trust in your power. Trust in your heart. I feel his words ripple through my body, tingling, igniting a fire within. The wisdom of my ancestors lies within me. If I listen carefully, they will show me the way. After the third sundown, it's time to leave Uluru. We begin walking back to our village. I feel different. I feel empowered. I feel a newfound sense of duty. My life's purpose is clear to me now. I am a warrior. I'm filled with pride as I remember my father, his strength, his courage, his fortitude. The chance to be a warrior like him fills me with an excitement and honor I have not yet felt in my life. I've had no food or water for almost a week, yet I feel incredible, stronger than ever before. I'm eager to get home to my family. I'm eager to make them proud. At last, the teepees appear in the distance. I begin to run towards them, towards the river. I plunge into the rushing water, gulping it down, bathing in its cool currents. My wife and kids stand on the side of the riverbank. I run through the currents to them. I hold them all in a long embrace, grateful to be home again. Over time, I begin to understand my role as the warrior. I understand what it means to protect my village. It's not about being a physical warrior. It doesn't require bodily strength. The warrior is a spiritual protector. The warrior's job is mental. The warrior doesn't tell others about his role as the warrior. The warrior is a silent guardian. I know what I must do. I cast a net. Unseen to all but me, it hangs high above the village, an invisible sheath, a protective barrier. Below the net, truth, joy, love, transparency. Yet I know what lurks beyond it. On the other side, gray smoke prowls above the net. Dark, thick, it coils and twists, looking for a way in. It's persistent, sinister, dark energy. I don't fear the smoke. I know what it is. The smoke is like a parasite looking for a host. The host is vulnerable and innocent, unknowing. Nobody else in my village knows it's there. If they did, they'd fear it and the smoke would find a way in. Fear always lets the smoke in. I call upon the ancestors to help me hold the net, to help me hold the light. A few months pass by. I'm riding on the back of a black stallion. I feel a surge of anticipation rising within me. I feel a knot in my stomach, churning, twisting. Something is wrong. Something bad happened. I can feel it. I race back towards the village. As I get closer, I hear crying. Deep, wretched sobs echo across the vast desert. It's my wife. Her frantic cries cut through me. As I get closer, I see her slumped over on the side of the river, the other villagers gathered around her. I jump off the horse and run towards her, my heart pounding in my ears. I see she's holding our baby. Her desperate wails confirm what I can't bear to accept. Our baby boy lays lifelessly in her arms. I struggle to understand. He died in his sleep. No accident occurred. He wasn't sick. He just fell asleep and stopped breathing. My wife is broken. She's tormented with guilt, unable to not blame herself. A turning point for her, a turning point for me. Guilt rises in me as well. I am the protector. How did I let this happen? I am the warrior, yet I couldn't keep my son safe. Self-doubt grips me. Shame crushes my truth. The gray smoke found a way in. My wife and I are both captured by disgrace, unable to understand that neither of us is to blame. The net begins to fade. The darkness descends upon us. The gray smoke creeps in. I begin to fall, half in, half out of the darkness. The smoke taunts. It plays tricks. It would be so easy to give in, to relax into the sorrow, to give up. But I know what will happen. The gray smoke will take over. A thick haze of illusion will seep into the village. People will become angry, jealous, afraid of one another. Reality will become distorted. I can't let the net fade away. I walk away from the village into the quiet desert night. I sit down, my legs crossed, and close my eyes. I call upon the ancestors. I feel Uluru in my heart. I feel its energy giving me strength. I feel my dad's hand upon my head. I remember. I am a warrior. I am a protector. Under the starry night sky, I sit in silence, hand on my heart, feeling the breath of the rock, the breath of the ancestors. I take a deep breath, eyes closed, and see the body of my baby boy. I see a light rising from him, leaving his body and soaring high. He's going to the light grid. I see a white thread from the baby going to the grid, then from the grid to the bright light source. I see him connected to the grid, connected to the source. I see his light drop back down to the grid and shoot off across it, traveling along the soul's highway. A profound understanding hits me. He's moving on to another life. His soul's evolution continues. Watching in amazement, I follow along. I glide across the grid until I see the golden thread leading down to him. I drop down. I'm soaring over mountain tops, across vast green rolling hills, until I see him. Sitting in tall grass, straight dark brown hair, large almond-shaped brown eyes, a big radiant smile. A young girl. She's holding something up as if showing it to me. It's a bright yellow flower. Her small fingers clutch its long green stem. She laughs giddily. There's a twinkle in her dark eyes. She knows I'm here. She remembers me. Across space and time, we're always connected. The realization takes my breath away. A moment of pure magic. A moment suspended in time. I look around and see her home. A small stone cottage in the middle of a vast countryside. Yaks are grazing in the fields. Her mom is making her soup in a large cauldron. Her dad is working out in the fields. She's happy. She's safe. She's loved. I'm shaken with an astounding awareness. I see the eternal evolution of consciousness, the divine connection between us all. I choke back a sob. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed. I understand why my boy had to pass on to this new life, so I could understand, so I could learn the lesson. Half in, half out of the darkness, the test of a warrior. The smoke is tricky like that. It wraps around you like a warm blanket, distorting your perception, creating an illusion of comfort, deceiving you into believing the darkness is the easier path, sucking you into delusions, yet you don't even know it's there. Its subtlety is its power. It feels natural, effortless. The smoke quietly, discreetly dims your light. I see my heart, a reflection of Uluru. I see Uluru, a reflection of the light source. I see the net I cast above my village, a reflection of the light grid. As above, so below. As within, so without. An awareness I can access the light grid from my heart. Curious, I look for my dad. Shooting off across the grid, I drop down and see a man sitting in a boat. He's smiling, a twinkle in his eye. He's fishing. I recognize his aura. There's an innate familiarity. I'm overcome with amazement and an extraordinary appreciation for this gift, an access to the entire universe right within me. I hold these truths in my heart. I hold the breath of Uluru in my heart. The net hangs high again, the smoke pushed out, the darkness lifted from the village. My wife and older son begin to heal. Their hearts are no longer gripped by the gray smoke. The guilt they carried is dissolved. I don't tell them what I saw on the grid. I don't tell them that our son is happy, living a peaceful life in another space and time. I show them. I reflect the light inside of me, the same light that burns in our son, in my dad, in all of us. It's far more powerful than the gray smoke. Once sparked, it spreads like wildfire, a memory ignited. The light of Source, the light of Uluru, the light of each and every soul lives in us all. The warrior is the reminder, the messenger. The light never goes out. It dims and flickers, but always remains. Beneath the smoke and darkness, the flame burns, ready to guide us out of the shadows. Time passes. My body is tired, my spirit ready to move on. My son is older now, preparing for his journey to Uluru. Soon he will take over as protector. Uluru will show him the way. I lay inside our teepee, surrounded by family, perfectly content, perfectly at peace. My wife burns sage and hums quietly. She cools my forehead with tiny droplets of water. My son holds my hand. His other hand rests on my heart. He already understands his role as the warrior. I squeeze the hands of my wife and son. I smile, knowing I will see them again. I close my eyes and exhale deeply, ready to return home.
And we're back. Again, I'm Keysha, the facilitator and guide during these sessions, and I'm joined by my co-host Hilary. She is the writer and narrator and the experiencer of these stories that you're listening to.
Hi, I'm Hilary. I'm the experiencer. I like that.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back again. This time, session number 3, Second Life on Earth. And it's a good one, don't you think? Yeah. Really beautiful one, honestly. So I guess we should start with the very beginning, how we went back to the death scene in the previous life. Because that's something that we're going to basically do for almost every session moving forward.
Right.
We're going to go in at the death of the previous life.
Right.
So this was the first time doing that. So any thoughts you have on that?
Well, I think it was quite incredible because this is obviously the first time that we attempted this, or I attempted this. And so it was amazing to me again how easily that worked, where you went into your previous life right after you died and watched where your soul went to, and you kind of you didn't really hang around that area for too long. You pretty much tried to connect with that guy who had murdered you, but then you realized that he was going to have to figure that out on his own. and your family was all good and the village was pretty good. And so you just decided to head on up to wherever that place is. You went back to source.
The bright white light in the sky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I just want to like emphasize the coolness of this coming from somebody that was an atheist, right? Like that. Let me just put some emphasis on that because it's pretty fucking crazy. Excuse my language, but yeah, this was really incredible, and I remember feeling in this. Like, okay, watching the dead body of the life before me and not really feeling any attachments to that life at all, but not knowing where to go or what to do. And so then it was, and I think it's really interesting in this one too, how it was like when I was observing my family and the animals and everybody sending my body off to sea and all of that, there was this like interesting fog that was hovering above everything. And I was almost wondering if I was the fog. And I think it's like pretty cool going into this one where we see the gray smoke, that was like this fog settled in above everything. And then as soon as my body was sent off to sea and the like celebration of life for me was over, then this fog lifted. And then as soon as the fog lifted, I see this bright light in the sky. But it's almost like more than seeing it, it was this very strong feeling with that, this very magnetic pull towards it. Like as soon as I saw it, it started like a really bright star and it just kind of kept growing and growing and just felt like I was being pulled towards it. Obviously, like, willingly, it wasn't like, no, oh, hell no, I don't want to go there type of pull.
Right.
But it was like this really cool and being drawn to this. And then once I got up there, then it was like I became part of this source. And the feeling I had in my body during the session was this very electric, buzzing feeling. And it was like, in the session, I think I said to you, like, there was no sense of self anymore. It was just this like connected with everyone I've ever known being there. And just this like really pure feeling of like bliss and I don't know, just this crazy energy going through my body. It was really wild.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then I was up there for a little bit, I guess. And I remember saying, like, from that light source, I was kind of almost looking down and I see this grid materialize. And so it was like these lines, horizontal and vertical lines that were like these glowing energetic pathways. And it almost seemed like they were sort of curving around the earth, right? And I was like, cool. I don't know what that is, but I'm going down there. And I could see all these lights moving across it, like shooting stars going across this grid. And it's like the only way I can explain it is like it was a highway of souls.
I was just going to say, it sounds like LA.
Yeah, exactly like LA. When you die, you go to LA.
Yeah.
Sorry about it. LA, but way cooler.
This highway of stars.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the only way I can really explain it is like all these lights moving around. And again, this like crazy electric current that it just felt like. And so obviously this is why we named this one the grid. The grid is pretty important in this this session.
Absolutely,
for sure.
Yes.
But yeah, that was crazy. And we're going to go to the grid a lot throughout this. So there'll be a lot more talk about the grid. But this first experience on the grid was pretty rad.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of hanging out on the grid for a little bit. And I think you were saying like, okay, well now, what happens next? And then I felt another sort of magnetic pull. And then it was like I was shooting off across the grid. And then there was like a picture it as this dangling golden thread of light that then dropped down from the grid almost down into earth. And so I was kind of like spiraling down this golden thread, and that's when I landed in this new life. And then I was pretty sure pretty quickly when I landed that I was in Australia. It was super hot, super dry. I come in as a man again, just standing in the desert in what I picture to just be like the outback. And it's like very strong, sturdy man. And pretty quickly, I'm going to just figure, okay, I'm heading home. So I go back to my village and basically I'm getting ready to head off on this rite of passage with some homies from my village. And that was cool. It was like in the beginning, I didn't know what was happening. There was this feeling of anticipation kind of going on when I arrived in the village and the didgeridoos playing. And I was like, I know that marked like some sort of significant event was going to happen because this dude was playing this didgeridoo and I wasn't sure what it was, but I was excited. And then it was like another one of those knowings where I was like, oh, we're going on some sort of a pilgrimage, some walk. And we set off into the night with nothing. You're like, what do you have with you? I was like, oh, nothing.
I'm like, not even water in the desert? In this, like,
nope.
Nothing. Yeah.
No, absolutely nothing. No weapons, no water, no food. And we walked for what I would think was a few days.
It was a few days, yeah.
Yeah, and then it was like as Uluru materialized in the distance, that was another like magnetic pull type of moment where I see this big rock sort of appear, and it was nighttime when I saw it, and it was like it was almost glowing in the in like far off in the desert. And then the second I saw it, it was like boom. I was like magnetized to it. I knew that it was Uluru too. I was familiar with Uluru. I've never personally been there, but I was in Australia. Wanted to go there, but never made it. And so yeah, then we're there hanging out, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, let's just explain a little bit about how these ley lines exist, like on the planet, the same as in the solar system. You know how the planet has chakras, just like the human body does, and this specific area on the planet is the third chakra, which is the solar plexus, the power center of the entire planet. And it's literally the place where we absorb information, process emotions. It's where we receive information. And in the physical body, in the human body, that is in the center of the body, it's the digestive system. And so I think it's amazing that you take this trek to go to this place literally to receive information, and super significant. And do you want to explain what that was like when you received that?
Yeah, I do just want to go back real quick because I totally forgot about the ley line thing. And I just want to bring this in briefly. You mentioned that because this is another moment for somebody like me going into all of this, having zero knowledge of any of this stuff. Nothing metaphysical, nothing esoteric, nothing spiritual. Like I truly knew nothing.
Did you ever even hear that word before this? Ley lines?
Ley lines?
Yeah.
No. Or if I did, I don't remember because it wasn't significant to me.
Okay.
So no, I remember after we did the session, I was again probably walking Walter, my dog, listening to some podcast or doing maybe even just looking up random things. But I specifically remember being with Walter on a walk and discovering ley lines and being like, "Are you serious? What?" It's like energy lines that go around the earth that are like, I mean, this is a well-known thing. I had no idea about it, but if you've never heard of them, look into it because it's pretty cool. But Yeah, it's like exactly like this grid, this energetic grid.
Right. It's the as above, so below.
So
here we are.
it's the as above, so below. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, and again, I had absolutely no idea that Uluru was considered to be a chakra of the earth. That shit never crossed my mind before any of this. So another pretty cool learning experience for me. But yeah, being at Uluru was very similar to being up at Source. Another as above, so below, right? Because the magnetism of it, first of all, being so drawn to it, and then being there and again feeling this extreme bliss, this peace, and being there without any kind of food or water or anything like that. So I have to be like suffering from some serious dehydration. And but there was absolutely no fear of any consequences, anything like that happening. I did have that guy with me that was going through it for a minute, but then it was like something from the rock showed me that I needed to like squeeze the seed over his lips. And then once I did that, then he was cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really felt like there's a big as above, so below with the Uluru and reflecting Source, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
And being there, like feeling really connected to all of these ancestors. Like Uluru is a very sacred spot. And so in this session, I was clearly going there with this mission to connect with my ancestors and to find my purpose. That seemed to be like the primary reason I wanted, or the primary question I had for the rock, for the ancestors of these spirits that lived in the rock, was to show me my purpose. And then I feel my dad's presence, and he tells me that I'm to be the warrior. I'm to be the protector of the village. And it wasn't clear to me what exactly that role was at the time, but I remember feeling like this extreme sense of pride and this excitement to almost, walk in my father's footsteps, and be the warrior, be the hero, essentially. So, yeah. Anything else about Uluru before we move on from that point?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that so it is definitely the sun and fire represent this place, and I think that your father gave you I think it's important to understand that this is a spiritual warrior or mental. Your job was more. It wasn't to be this fighter, physical warrior. Yeah.
Right. That's definitely what I thought at first was, oh yeah, like I'm the masculine guy that runs around, fighting off intruders and such. And it became pretty clear to me after I got back that wasn't what the kind of warrior that my dad was talking about. It became very clear that this was a spiritual job. This was, I think, spiritual and mental.
Right.
And it was like I had to protect the village from essentially spiritual attacks. And so then what I did was what any of us would do, right? Cast a net up in the sky. And you're like, so what are you going to do? And I said, I cast a net.
Yeah.
And just like, again, picturing this like huge fishing net covering the village, this like bubble above the village that's invisible to everybody but me. And below the net that I cast was like everyone living in love and harmony and truth and joy. And then I said, but I know what's above. I know what's on the other side of the net. And you're like, what is it? I was like, it's gray smoke. And but I picture it still so clearly in my mind as these it's like this thick, dense smoke that almost had like all these long like octopus arms, coming off of it and just kind of swirling and twisting around the top of this net, just like looking for a tiny like puncture of a hole to get in. And then it was like, okay, this is my job to keep this gray smoke out. I said nobody else in the village knew about the gray smoke, because if they did, then they would fear it.
Right.
And once you know it's there and you fear it, then you automatically are like poking a little hole in that net, and the smoke is going to start slowly creeping down in. And so this was pretty freaking cool, the gray smoke part of this whole thing, which we keep going back to over and over again because it's huge. Right?
It represents so many things. And I remember there were a couple moments where you were explaining how when any time that your job got a little bit, like you became maybe a little bit distracted or something, that you had that connection with your father, and he was always helping you. That connection was always there, and he continued to help you. It wasn't like he just gave you this job and was like, okay, this is your job.
Like,
you're on
peace
your
out.
Yeah.
Good luck.
No, like that connection remained for you to be able.
For sure.
I thought that was very interesting.
Him, and it was like all of the ancestors in that rock.
Right.
I felt like I had this whole army behind me to help
the whole
me out,
posse,
for sure, which is important. right.
Yeah.
I got my crew. But so let's just talk about the gray smoke for a minute, and because it is, I think, really significant. And again, so this is another thing that I had never heard of, was the Maya. Had you heard of the Maya before this?
Not in this way. Not in this way.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think I was like somehow looking up gray smoke or something and trying to figure out if there was like also something that I just had never heard about before, but it was like everybody knew about this gray smoke that's lurking. But what I did discover was that I believe it's in Hinduism, they talk about Maya being this illusion. And it's like the veiling of the true unitary self, and it's like the cause of all of us feeling this separation from one another. But the gray smoke comes in so many ways that it's like, I mean, it's crazy. You and I have been talking about the gray smoke for quite a while. And so there's like, for me, when I look back in my life or just think about it, even on a day-to-day basis, it's like I can see it everywhere. Right?
Absolutely.
All the time. It's like fear, it's shame, it's judgment, it's anger, it's self-doubt. It's all of these like lower emotions that keep us stuck in these low vibrations. And for me, when I think about it over my life, it's like I went through this period of time where I was battling pretty serious addiction with alcohol. And to me, when I think about addiction, that's like the ultimate form of gray smoke. Like all these distortions were in my head when I was going through this time. It was like, I think I don't want to get too much into this, but I believe that my addiction with alcohol started because of all of these insecurities that I felt about myself. And I've always been a fairly introverted person. And I discovered that when I drank, I was suddenly this like outgoing, fun person that people wanted to be around. And all of the insecurities that I felt about myself started to melt away. And so I used that as this crutch for a long time. And then it kind of just like, luckily for me, my addiction kind of just went hard and fast, and then I just nosedived pretty quickly. So it wasn't this thing that spanned decades. I'm very fortunate that way. But man, that thing just the way that it manipulated my mind, the alcohol, the act of being so addicted to one thing in order to get throughout the day. And then the fear, like these feelings of self-loathing that come from that. Because I began to hate myself so much, right? Because I couldn't get through the day without this. And then you're acting in ways that you don't want to because of this addiction. And it's just like, oh my God, the way that it distorted how I viewed myself, how I viewed the world. Locked me in the state of literally just being like paralyzed with fear for so long. Making me contemplate suicide, like all of this stuff. And I just like, there's so many people right now, that are struggling with addiction, and it's so hard to break free from. And to me, it's like the ultimate warm blanket.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
Yeah. In this, like when I was thinking about, when I was writing this, it was like that was the feeling that I had. It's just like wrapping myself in this warm, cozy blanket of like gray smoke, this feeling that's like that darkness and those lower vibrations, those feelings like the victim mentality, right? Like those are like, they can be safe, comfortable places to live as much as they are terrible. And it's like, we hate them. There's almost, again, this like addictive quality to it.
Yeah.
Right. And it like being in that state, I just like, it wanted to hold, like there was something that just wanted to hold me in that state and keep me. Do you know what I mean?
Totally, I absolutely hear you. Yeah. It's really fascinating. And that was, I remember so clearly in your session when you said, when I asked you, because that warm blanket came up when your baby died, and that gray smoke started creeping in because you were so consumed by guilt and grief and all of those I think it was mostly guilt and grief when you say you felt bad that you weren't there to save him.
Yeah, I felt like, well, I was like I'm supposed to be the protector and the warrior, and how did this happen?
Right.
Like clearly it was my fault then, obviously.
Yeah.
Even though it was like the baby just was like napping or sleeping or something and just stopped breathing. There was nobody at fault. But obviously as the parents of a baby that dies, of course you would blame yourself. That's a pretty natural reaction.
Yeah.
But,
that was really interesting though, because you were very aware that the gray smoke was creeping in, and you were describing how it was almost a comfortable place, like to it, when you said it's like it feels like wrapping yourself in a warm blanket. And I just remember thinking, wow, a warm blanket of guilt and sorrow and grief and just wanting to stay there. But because like, if you weren't feeling those things after your son had died, this baby had died, what does that look like? Like in the moment, it looks like, it could look like, oh, you're like heartless and don't even care that this baby died. Or it could be like, it felt like how you were supposed to feel, the appropriate way to feel. But it's such an illusion. It is the Maya, the illusion of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many ways to look at the gray smoke and how it affects us in our daily lives.
I think about
like another.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Well, real quick, I was just going to say, like, I was thinking about in, I think it was episode 1 when I was talking about, how I was, where I was at in my life prior to starting all of this stuff, and how I was so focused on negativity and on the external world. And I mean, to me, the news is like one of the ultimate forms of gray smoke.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
I mean, especially the way it is now. It's not just reporting facts about what's happening around the world. It comes with all of this bullshit. And it's like sort of sculpting us like we're these like molds, and it's just like telling us, it's this brainwashing coming at us, telling us who to hate, and dividing, separating all of us. And like, I was really caught up in that shit for a while. I mean, truly. And like thinking, and I talked about how I was just feeling really kind of depressed and stuff. But what I didn't talk about was a lot of the anger and the judgments that I was feeling when I was living in that space. And I was angry at the world, and I was angry at people I didn't know based on how they voted, people I had never spoken to in my life. You know, I'm judging people everywhere I go. I'm angry at all these people because some jackass on the news is telling me to be.
Right.
Right? Like, it's fucked up, but that's how it is. And coming from, you know, me, like I was so hardcore in that state that it's like, it's pretty shocking to me that I kind of made it out of that space without really even trying or having an awareness of it. It's not like I woke up one morning and I was like, damn, gray smoke's got me. Like, I need to get out of this space. You know, this is just like this, you know, evolving for me, truly. And it's like, I'm cool with that. I'm okay to say, like, guess what? A few years ago, this is who I was. And I'm not proud of it, right? I'm not proud of judging people that I never met. I'm not proud of hating people that I never met. And I was on this like fucking soapbox thinking that I'm so much better than all these other people. Meanwhile, I'm running around judging everybody and being angry. And it's like, I limited myself so much in terms of meeting people, making connections, because I had put myself in this box. And if you weren't in the same box that I was, then, you know, screw you, essentially.
Yeah.
And over the last couple of years, I've met people of all walks of life, many people, which before I never would have considered having a conversation with them.
That's wild.
And guess what? They're fantastic people.
Yeah.
And I just feel like this is one of the biggest forms of gray smoke that we deal with right now in our current lives, is like all this shit that comes out of the media. You know, it's just like all it does is divide us, keep us hating each other, keep us judging one another. And the more divided we are, well, like, look what happens. Look where we're at right now.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put that out there because for me, it's been such a huge change in my life that's brought nothing but like cool new friendships, right? Meeting new people, hearing different perspectives. I don't have to agree with everything that everybody thinks and says. That's cool. But like, you know, as long as you're not being a dick to me or being like outwardly, you know, whatever, you know, racist or an asshole to other people, like if you are doing any of those things, then I don't really want to hang out with you. But like what I found is that most people are actually really nice, really cool people. The people that I have met that I, you know, never would have considered talking to beforehand. So I just
appreciate,
had to throw that in
yeah,
there.
Thank you for sharing that, Hilary. That's so important for people to hear in today's world, because the division is the biggest thing that I think we're suffering from as a whole right now. It's pretty dense, you know, and
that smoke is very dense, and it's fucking subtle. It is so subtle, and that's I think one of the trickiest things about it. Like, since we've done this session, which has been a couple years, we have this awareness of the gray smoke, but it's still kind of, it creeps in. You know,
it creeps in everywhere. It even
time.
Creeps in like places where, like, I don't know, like I think about, I'm a yoga instructor, for example, and I think about the beginning of my yoga, you know, stuff when I got real serious about it about a decade ago. And I think about how it even creeps in places like that. Like, you think it's like a form of addiction in a way. Like if I were having a shitty day one day or something, I'd be like, oh, well, that's because I only did yoga once today. I didn't do yoga twice today. or like whatever. That's what I mean. It's like, it can come in through anything that keeps us distracted from just being okay with who we are and what we're experiencing, and or not even not being okay, meaning like, oh, everything's like rainbows and butterflies all the time, but the awareness, like, be upset if something horrible happens and be okay with being upset with it, or just anything that keeps us more in our head than in our heart, I would say.
That's exactly it right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
It's like blocking off living from the heart space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. So then, yeah, you were talking a minute ago about obviously like the baby dies. And so this is when, my wife spirals and then I start to spiral. And I think I said I was like half in and half out of the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And, the gray smoke was there like this warm, cozy blanket. And I just felt like it was going to be so easy to give in.
Yeah.
But I knew what was going to happen if I succumbed to that darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew the gray smoke was basically going to take over my village. And then, I have failed my mission as the warrior.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go out and I'm sitting under the stars and I close my eyes and I'm picturing Uluru in my mind, and I put my hand over my heart, which I felt was a representation of Uluru. It was like Uluru was a reflection of Source, and my heart was a reflection of Uluru, thus a reflection of Source. And so I'm picturing all of this in my mind, and then I see my baby's body and see this white light coming from his body. And so I follow the light and I see it going up to the big grid in the sky where I was right before I came down into this life. And I said to you, oh my God, he's going up to the grid. And
yeah, you were.
This is a moment.
You were like, I remember very clearly. You said, "I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm watching. I'm watching this happen right now." And I think this is a part we really want to share with everyone so they can hear how this actually occurred in this session, because to me it's the most beautiful. I think it was truly the most beautiful thing. I could cry every time I even think about this moment. So
Right. This is like almost too powerful. Like we can't just talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
We decided that we needed to actually play this clip from the actual session.
Yeah.
Because I think you just get such a better understanding of how absolutely magical this moment was.
Right.
So we're going to play this short clip for you guys, and then we will be back.
Mm-hmm. Is that like one of the markers of where to actually go in physical form?
There's something about like that rock, that all that light from that source is in that, like it's in that rock.
Okay.
And there's something like I can see like the baby, and it's like a white line up to like here's the grid over the village, and then the white line goes into the grid, and then it goes up to the white source, but then it's like the rock is also a reflection of that white source. I don't know how to describe it.
That makes sense to me. It makes perfect sense that the rock would be a reflection of the light source, because all of that energy is... I understand what you mean. I'm having a hard time even saying it also, but I do understand what you mean. That makes sense. That's pretty amazing. Do you think that do you think that the light source that you came from are there a whole bunch of those light sources?
Mm-mm.
Just one. Okay. So there must be other places on the planet then that are like the rock?
The reflections.
The reflections. Okay. Do you think that these do you think that the energies of like your father and your baby and all these energies that culminate there, do you think they stay in that area, or do you think that they they go to other places too?
I think they go to other places, but when you need them, you can go to the rock and call on them.
Ah, okay.
And they'll be there.
Okay.
But they have other places to go too. But you'll always find their presence there if you need it.
Their what?
The presence there if you need it.
Okay. Can you find...
It's almost like I can see the baby's line going. Like I know
you can
he's going somewhere else now too.
Oh, okay. So what makes him... How do these energies know where to go?
I'm sorry.
No.
Like,
what's happening?
it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Like I saw that he was okay, and then he went, and like his soul was moving on to his next life, and I could see it all happen.
Wow.
Okay, so that was that. Yeah, it like I just want to cry every time I think about it. It like I get this like lump in my throat because it was so beautiful.
So beautiful.
And I mean, again, it's like I talked about this in the last episode with regards to when my dog passed away and I had that understanding that we were always going to be connected. Well, this just took that to like the next level, way beyond the next level, if I'm being honest. This is like, again, I'm going to keep kind of bringing this in because it's just so wild to me. It's like, here's this chick that was an atheist, like witnessing, experiencing it's like unbelievably beautiful moments that show. And again, like, I don't know if we all actually go up to this grid or what. Like, I'm not saying this is actually what happens, but I also do.
because this is what you saw.
I do, for me. Yeah. Right. Like, for me, this is real shit. Right? Like, for me, I actually really do. I see the grid all the time. I feel the grid all the time around me. Like, I want to cry right now thinking about it. Like, I know it's there, right, for myself. So while I'm not saying like, oh, I'm sitting here claiming to know that we all go up to this grid in the sky when we die, like, whatever. But for me, I do know that,
yeah,
honestly. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
it does, absolutely. So because like, I think it is whatever we believe is what will happen. If we believe we go to, you know, like whatever you believe, heaven or whatever, that's what I think happens for everyone. It's the power of belief, right? I mean, right. Well, I believe in the grid. I believe the grid is actually everywhere, all around us. 100%. It's also like, you know, these energetic currents that are just like flowing everywhere. It's not just this like net around the globe. It's like sometimes if I'm sitting here, I almost like picture I'm sitting in this grid, right? Almost like Matrix style, but not in like a weird creepy sense, in like a really beautiful sense where it's like I can feel and see all these lives happening at the same time and all of these different experiences, like infinite possibilities all around me at any given moment. And it's like the way to access that is through your heart, right? Like to tap into your heart space, and then it sort of opens up this world of infinite possibilities. Speaking of infinite possibilities, this is one of the most, this was really cool in this session too. I remember when we were in your subconscious toward the end, I asked you, so when you leave, when you come back, when you incarnate again, would it be possible for you to go and be with your daughter, now daughter, in Mongolia or wherever that was? Could you choose to go back and be with her in some capacity? And I just remember so clearly you acted like that was like the dumbest question you had ever heard. You were like, well, yeah, I could, but, and it was like, and I could, but why would I? Because there's so many things that you could experience. And also because we are all connected all the time anyway. So why would you choose to come back to some like remote area of like this hillside in Mongolia just to be with your daughter who you could be with at any time? And there's a gazillion other things you could experience too. It was hilarious, actually. I remember actually wanting to like laugh at myself because I felt like it was a really dumb question after you responded. It's almost like you were like, did you just hear what I said? Or
You're not paying attention.
Yeah. And I certainly was. I was just kind of like, wow, so you could. But it was like, at the same time, ridiculous.
Right. I mean, I think it's a very valid question. I probably would have asked the same if I was in your shoes, but I guess in that moment I was just like, no, why would I do that?
Yeah, and it was really cool too. I don't remember exactly where this was at this moment, but when I asked you if you could see your father, if he had incarnated again.
Oh, right.
And and you saw him on that fishing boat, and very happy, peaceful. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Also. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, he was just chilling in this fishing boat with a big old grin on his face, and it was like I knew that was my dad. And yeah, like how cool, right? And I've used the grid a lot in meditation. I remember right after we did this, like I was like all into the grid for the longest time. I would picture the grid and just go like all these crazy places on it. And in that point in time too, it was always the space like above the earth. Like it was always this above thing. And now I'm sort of in the space where I'm picturing it all around me all the time.
Yeah.
And I could just like access it anytime I want to. In meditation, or even not. Sometimes I'm just be sitting here quietly for a few minutes and I'll picture it, and you know, I don't know. It's pretty incredible, honestly.
It is. It's the flow of energy.
I mean, this absolutely, and like how we're all on that, you know, on that grid, moving around, and I don't know. I think it's that idea of infinite possibilities had never occurred to me before, truly.
Right.
And again, like going back to this point of like me having this understanding that all of these people in my life that I love, that I have always feared the day that, you know, I would lose people close to me when they die. And like that fear is totally gone. Because I have this like innate knowing and understanding, again, this is truth to me, that I will always be connected with these people that I love, with everybody. But it's like, you know, having that feeling of fearing when your parents die or something like that, or your kids, or, you know, these awful things. And it's not to say that there won't be grief. You won't feel that loss.
Of course.
But it's a big fucking difference from feeling like that's it, right?
Life over.
I tried not to think about death too much prior to doing all this because it was so terrifying to me. It was like that door that I never wanted to open, because it was like how awful and sad to think that you have these amazing connections with people in this life, and then like, boom, that's it. Nothing. They're gone. You'll never have any connection to them again. That's a pretty sad space to be in.
Right.
So
it's scary.
Now to be given this gift, it is scary. And I've talked to, you know, several people in my life that have experienced many losses. Specifically, my sister has had to deal with many close people in her life passing away over the last few years. And it's like, I don't want to come to anybody, and I don't want to sound like I'm preaching to anybody about this stuff, but I think it's also like, for me, it's given me such a sense of peace that I try to very gently just say, like, I mean, what if that's not the end, mm-hmm. right? Like, what if they're okay? What if there is no hell, right? Like, that seems to be a fear that I've talked to some people about too, is like, well, if you're in some kind of religion where it's like you don't act a certain way and then you're banished to, like, this hell for eternity. I mean, again, awful thought. It's like, what if that doesn't exist? What if that shit's just gray smoke? Right? What if that shit's all in your mind? Mm-hmm. But anyways, I could go off on all this stuff for a long time. But again, I just wanted to say this was another massive, massive gift for me, which has really helped me sort of come to a very peaceful feeling and understanding about how there's never really any kind of a death. It's just a transformation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So
yeah.
Then I guess in the session after basically that magical moment of watching my baby and the dad, then I come back down into into my life. And it was like, I didn't tell my wife and my son about what I saw. Like, I didn't tell them, like, so this is what happened. I went up to this grid and I saw our baby go to Mongolia. And now he's this, like, happy little girl and it's cool. So you don't need to be sad. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't say that to them. But I think it was more like this, me showing them,
absolutely,
that I had started to spiral out into the darkness as well, and then I caught myself, mm-hmm. and so that was like I was essentially the way I viewed it was just like reflecting the light from Source, reflecting the light from Uluru, like,
and it is the heal yourself, heal the world again. That is
exactly like that's exactly what it is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you had that understanding that you didn't have to explain anything to them. You just had to do what you knew how to do, and what.
Yeah, exactly.
Get rid of that.
They made it out.
Yeah,
mm-hmm. they made it out of that space, and the net was hung high once again up in the sky.
Yeah.
So do you want to say anything else about the as above, so below in this? Because this obviously was very significant in this one.
I think that
like, for people that don't know, have never heard of as above, so below, should we talk a little bit about, like, what the hell that is?
I can't think of anything more to add to it except for that I think the grid is a perfect example of that energetic grid that travels, is exactly that exists on the planet. It exists everywhere. Everything is all connected all the time, and I think as we move on, even in the next one we're about to get into, I think that will make even more sense as we continue. But
right,
is there anything else that you would want to share about it?
Well, the only thing I want to, two things maybe I want to say is, one is that just for people that have never heard of as above, so below, as within, so without, it's the law of correspondence, one of the Hermetic principles,
right?
Which is, I think, pretty important to mention.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course, you said the as above, so below, like that, the grid and Uluru, and it's like, we are connected to the cosmos. It's like there's so many things I've seen, like images of, lightning, like what's the word I'm looking for, like fractaling across the sky, being in like exact reflection of roots growing down into the earth. It's like showing us, how we are, reflections of the cosmos, basically. Mm-hmm. And then as within, so without, to me, that's like whatever is going on within me, right, is what is going to be reflected externally.
Absolutely.
And so if I'm captured by the gray smoke and I'm living in this darkness, then that's my external world. Like that's what's shown to me. That's the space I'm living in. That's where I was in my life before starting all of this, like caught up in that gray smoke. And all I could see was doom and gloom around me. And I'm filled with anger and all of those negative feelings. And I'm literally like trapped, in this low vibration. And then moving through all of this is like, now I'm learning to try to live more like from my heart and less from my head, right? Less from, some of these thoughts that we can have that can be very detrimental to us. And so to me, I just wanted to say that like the as within, so without is very significant.
Absolutely. Yeah.
In this one as well. And this is the first time this comes up, but it definitely comes up a lot more as we move through these later and they get crazier and crazier. So it's like good to lay some of these foundations early on because shit gets pretty wild.
Yeah.
In a few episodes.
Each one I think gets a little more and more wild for sure.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And yeah, so this again, like this one was, gosh, just such a like simple, but not, but beautiful story to have shown to me at this time in my life. And I mean, every time I go back to this one, I'm just like, oh my God.
I know.
I can't believe that I was the experiencer in this. Like,
it's so beautiful.
Cool. And so I guess, yeah, like the end of this life was just really peaceful death, moving out of this life. I obviously had an understanding that I was just basically going to go right up to the grid. So there was certainly no fear or no feeling of loss or attachment or anything like that. It was just like I'm surrounded by family and my son was understanding that he was going to be taking over for me. And I think he had a good understanding of what that role was. So it was like, yeah, I was ready to go.
Easy peasy in this one.
Peace out.
The exit plan.
Yeah. The exit plan was very easy.
Yeah, it was in this one. Yeah.
Yeah. This one was really incredible. And so that pretty much sums this one up. Anything else that you want to mention before we wrap it up?
I think that's it. I think that's it for this one.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys listening again and hope you'll come back next week as the journey continues to a really cool location.
Until next time, thank you for listening.
Thank you. See ya.